This section is about external investigators. Now, I decided to sit here because this is where I keep my chess collections. The piece I'm interested in is the pawn, and I feel that's who I was. And the three investigators, particularly the first one, was really not interested in a pawn. Now, the first investigator was the Jim Hosber. He's white support service manager from Chadwick Lodge. He was called in by Paul O'Connor after I had complained about unfair treatment and victimization. The first thing he wrote about was MJ claims that the care plans are nothing to do with her, as she only overtook the patients at the beginning of April. That wasn't my complaint. My complaint was about the time that I was expected to write 19 care plans and a CPA report in 6 days. His response was, Staff Nurse Ma does not appear to understand that if a primary nurse is allocated a patient, then they are responsible for the update of that care plan. She has been the primary nurse for both patients since the beginning of April, and in my opinion, has had sufficient time to update the plans, irrespective of what other staff did before her. And that is the problem. Nobody takes responsibility for their work. Why not talk to the staff who wrote those care plans? CPA management and MHRT reports were late, and when received had to be redone. And that is not true. It was just one report. And his response was, MJ had 18 days. No, I didn't have 18 days. I had 6 days to complete the reports and had not done them. When told that there was already a report and all that is required was updating, she refused, saying that she would rather do her own reports. That sounds arrogant. What I said was that I do not want to sign my name on a report written by someone else, because I'm accountable once I put my name on it. I have a certain standard I work to, and the report they wanted me to update was way below my standards. The concept of time management and time saving was not appreciated. Now, we are given at least 3 months to do these reports, and yet they wanted me to do them in 6 days, including 19 care plans. Time management, his findings. Time management problems are apparent for MJ. Although being a very caring individual, she spends too much time on the psychotherapeutic interventions with their patients. Although these individuals have not been assessed for this form of treatment, which is much more time consuming than conventional psychiatric treatment. Considering my experience and qualification, I am capable of making an assessment of a patient's need. His finding, MJ did not appear to grasp the concept that failure to complete mandatory training could be grounds for discontinuing probation. The only mandatory training I didn't do, on the day I came to do the training, Karen Checha called me and told me that there was a crisis on the ward and she wanted me to go on the ward. That was the reason why that training wasn't done. In his conclusion, he says, in many ways, MJ is a caring individual who I believe will be better suited for acute psychiatry rather than forensic mental health. In the acute services, she would get the ability to use her psychotherapeutic skills. How can somebody say that on a rehabilitation unit? MJ has blinkered views of her employment at Farmfield. She feels that she's not being supported. Yet documentation proves that support has been offered on numerous occasions, but turned down, as she likes to do things her own way. I'm sure from watching what has been going on, people will have an idea of what I'm really like. Recommendations. Future review dates be cast in stone. If she does not attend, then a decision is made in her absence. Again, most of the postponing was done by Dashika and Penny. The only time I didn't go was when Dashika phoned me on a Wednesday to say that my probationary meeting was the following day. Because normally everyone else, they are told weeks in advance when their meeting is. But they decided to tell me a day before and left the message on my answer phone. I'm not at home on a Wednesday, so I picked up the message the Thursday evening, which was too late to go to the meeting. So, but what I need you to understand is, just listening to Jim's reports, can you believe that he was called in to investigate my complaints of unfair treatment? His focus was just on what I did rather than looking at the complaints I had put in. There's not a single comment on the unfair treatment I received. There's not a single negative comment or criticism of the managers. So that says it all. Now, as I said, after I was fired, Dashika told me that I could appeal. Now, the second investigator was Don Jeffrey, the white director of clinical services and the deputy hospital director. And what she says was that, thank you for your letter to Malcolm Campbell dated 27th. On behalf of the Priory, I would like to offer my apologies for the unacceptable delay. This letter was dated the 18th of September. I was fired on the 22nd of June. That delay was quite a long delay. And this is where I say that it was my mistake, that I should have gone to the employment tribunal. But I didn't want to go to the employment tribunal because I was 100% sure that if anybody investigated the way I was treated, they will find that, yes, I have reason to complain. Then the other thing she pointed out was that I had no right to appeal. So if they knew that I had no right to appeal, why didn't they tell me that in July? Why wait until September to then tell me that, no, you don't have the right to appeal? And I don't believe that Dashika, the HR advisor for Farmfield, didn't know that I can't appeal if I'm on probation. I believe that Dawn was fair in some ways, but in other ways she wasn't, because she just looked at the performance improvement action plan. As you remember, that was drafted in April. I'd been working at the Priory since December, and I had been completing my induction book. So they could have looked at my induction book. And my view of Dawn is that she thinks that that report covered from the time I started, not just the last month. I examined the performance improvement action plan, which sets out clearly the criteria and targets that you were required to meet during your probationary period. It was just the last month of my probationary period. This information recorded on this document clearly demonstrates that you failed to meet the target set, despite being given additional time by virtue of extended probationary period. The given time was 3 days. Is that enough? Dawn also looked at my allegations. My allegation that I was unfairly placed on nights for 6 weeks while under probation, that I did not have adequate supervision as a mentor was not allocated to me for 6 weeks, that I was unfairly treated by not being offered overtime, that Penny Vera pinned a letter on a notice board that I found humiliating, that I felt banned from the office and were in fact treated differently from colleagues who were given protected time to complete care plans, that I experienced the letters from Karen and Anne as threatening and unrealistic. So Dawn suggested that these allegations were not looked into. So what she said was that, as previously stated, I am of the opinion that the issues listed above, which you have provided to support your feelings of being victimized and treated differently, were not explored by Jim Horsbach as part of the original investigation, and I have therefore recommended that your concerns are treated in accordance with the company's grievance procedure. I added the following, which she accepted and said it would all come under unfair treatment. Why was my request to be moved from Keppel ward denied? Why was I asked to go on a ward instead of attending the mandatory training I was booked to do? Then told, MJ did not appear to grasp the concept that failure to complete mandatory training could be grounds for discontinuing probation. Was it fair to request that I review and rewrite 19 care plans and a CPA report in 6 to 9 days? Was it fair to load the problems with the care plans on me instead of addressing them with the concerned nurses? The third external investigator was Janet Reason, but she's group HRD manager. Her report is coming after the recommendations made by Don Jeffries, and this is her response. I'm satisfied and that your probationary period was extended and you were subsequently dismissed fairly, as you failed to meet the minimum targets set and so failed to meet the minimum standard required for your post. I'm also satisfied that you have not been discriminated against on grounds of your race, that all the concerns raised by you have been correctly investigated, the correct outcome reached, and those outcomes communicated to you. Please be aware there is no further right to appeal available to you, and therefore the Priory group will not be entering into any further correspondence with you. Now, it is quite interesting that she decided to say that there was no discrimination against you on the ground of your race. I didn't raise the issue of race, even though at the back of my mind I questioned whether this is happening to me because I'm black, but I never raised the issue of race. The reason I didn't raise the issue of race is because once you raise racism, people become defensive. Now, here's my response to Dean, which explains that Mr. Jim Horsbach raised the issue of race first before I said anything, and my response to him was that I would not like to go down the race route, and I still maintain that position because we have a lot to sort out without adding racism in the mix. I need the Priory to focus on the serious issues I'm raising, some of which might have happened because I'm black or I'm a woman, but mainly because I'm a nurse who also is a psychotherapist. At the moment, I do not care for the reason why this happened to me, because I'm more concerned with the fact that it should not have been allowed to happen. That is the point. But to put your comments into context, I wondered why, considering high number of black staff in this organization, the only managers who have been involved with my complaints are all white. I suppose that might be because most higher posts are occupied by whites. I know black people have a rough time at Farmfield, and I'm one of them. It used to upset me. For example, when Karen was shouting about the reports written by a black nurse, she was saying, "Is this English? Is this English?" And that upset me. There are many elderly blacks, and culturally, we are taught to respect our elders. So it upsets me to witness elderly staff being spoken to without respect. It took me back to the historical times when old black men were referred to as boy, and they had to smile as if it did not hurt. And I think the Priory needs to read my book in order to understand what goes on at the Priory.